A man in a white suit is struggling to walk, fading out of consciousness because of bullet wounds, putting his hat on a young man when he sleeps for the last time, who cries his eyes out. Out of grief, he touches a device and transforms into a Power Ranger-like suit, fighting robotic men and an insect-like women. Calling out for his father, the building they were on collapses in an explosion. In the windy city of Futo, private detective Shoutarou Hidari passes by a mysterious beautiful woman. In an almost translucent outfit, a 10 out of 10, he comes up with a pickup line, which is about her boobs, but the woman disappears just as mysteriously. Later that night at the Narumi Detective Agency, run by Chief Akiko Narumi, she lectures him on being a narcissist and being late, comparing the man to his father. But this is stopped as a client named Chuta Tsubasaki asks the agency's help in finding a self-proclaimed witch who stole his bag. The girl is the same one that was introduced previously, with her saying a similar line, "I'm always so hungry. Will you be the one who will satisfy me?" The witch steals his bag that has 280,000 yen and runs away, going through a dead end with no signs of her nearby. Hearing the case, Shotaro concludes that the man doesn't want the money, but instead had fallen in love with her. The man finds it inappropriate to ask for this, but both Akiko and Shotaro understand and agree to the job. Believing it to be the same woman from earlier, Shotaro goes to investigate and eventually manages to chase down the woman in question. As she runs away, just like in the client's story, she begins to fly. When he does manage to catch her, he learns her name is Tokime. He asks that she give back the man's bag and simple meet him. Tokime finds him to be cute, but deems him useless. When he goes to touch her, his heart starts to rapidly beat as if he's under a spell. Tokime then knee kicks him in the gut. She manages to escape, however. It's too late, as her power begins to work, as Shotaro suddenly finds himself in the middle of a building belonging to the Tachikawa group. When the police arrive, he's lucky that his buddy is able to bail him out. When hearing his story with the witch, the owner lets him off with no charges, wishing the police and him luck in catching her, with him soon leaving this part of town. He later learns from the police the story, how one of Tachikawa's men was allegedly murdered by Tokime. At a bar, he informs the client that she could be a killer, and this would involve police. Does he still wish to cover for her? Chuta, without hesitation, wants to see her. The detective then informs Akiko, and with a surprising fast response is on board, since her husband works with the police, taking confidentiality serious. The next day, Shotaro and Chuta track down Tokime, who is bathing in a public fountain, seemingly homeless. Chuta gives a half-baked confession, but as she responds, something triggers in her, and they begin to chase her down into a strange alternate version of Futo, where they come under attack by an unseen assailant. It is at this point that Shotaro's partner Philip arrives on the scene. After Tokime escapes by sinking through a wall, returning the others to the real Futo, Shotaro begins to list off all the strange things that have been happening, which makes Philip excited to hear all about it. After the goons from last night hear what they found, he threatens to burn her to a stake when they caught her. At his office, Akiko hears it and deduces that the crime involves a Gaia Memory, which turns people into powerful monsters known as Dopants, asking Philip to use his ability to access the infinite archive and narrow it down to the Road Memory, which allows its user to cross dimensions and create fake dimensions with blood. The next day, after another victim puts further suspicion on Tokime, Shotaro, still having his doubts, gets some leads on her from middle school student Akira, which leads him to another encounter with Chuta and the Road Dopant, and more cryptic words from Tokime. Taking offense at Philip's conviction that Tokime is the Road Dopant, Shotaro goes off on his own to confront Tokime. She gives back the bag hoping to end this encounter. The two talk, and after some blushing and Tokime's cryptic words, he discovers that she has amnesia and carries around a broken memory that heats up when Dopants are nearby. When they are surrounded by Tachikawa's group, Shotaro deduces that the Road Dopant is actually one of Tachikawa's men, Sabu, who used the memory to satisfy his cannibalistic urges. It is then that Philip arrives on the scene, upon which he and Shotaro use the Cyclone and Joker memories to transform into Kamen Rider W. Tokime is confused, and Akiko explains that Philip and the detective protect the town as Kamen Rider, under the same body. The Road Dopant attempts to escape into Shadow Futo, but Shotaro and Philip use the form-changing abilities of Kamen Rider W to chase him down and destroy his memory. Afterwards, the culprit is behind cuffs, but Shotaro looks at Tokime as there is one more loose end to handle. Shotaro confronts Chuta, who is actually a Dopant whose stolen bag contained the Toadstool memory and used the Narumi Detective Agency as a means to retrieve it. Philip also deduces that the rumors of the witch spawned from Tokime using the dimensional holes the Road Dopant made, proving that Tokime herself isn't a Dopant. Chuta used the drug so he could be a superhuman, so people couldn't call him mediocre or boring. Lunging for the device, he's stopped by Shotaro, who admits that he took this case so he could find his love and love the town. But not for him to seek for the worst parts of it. Chuta is arrested. Tokime has to be arrested as well, but not before Shotaro mentions her good qualities. Making her eyes sparkle, Tokime gives Shotaro a kiss before turning herself in as well. However, Tokime is shortly released and hired by Akiko to be Shotaro's assistant, so they can help her figure out the mystery behind her amnesia. Philip is the only one who can analyze her memory. With him being in a similar amnesia incident, feels it would be best she stayed in town. Tokime questions if Shotaro is against her working here, offering to leave if he wants. Not able to admit his feelings, Shotaro allows her to stay. Tokime then asks that he show her his place. Getting him nervous, he takes her to his apartment. She's shocked it's clean for a single man, but complains over the cramped space. Shotaro doesn't mind it, but yells why she's in his bed, as Tokime finds what she's doing obvious, scooting over so they can share the bed. The man is flustered, walking back to the office, where Akiko finds it bashful how he can't come to sleep with the girl he likes. The two adults talk how Tokime is still dangerous and must be involved in some past crime. Philip deduces that based on Shotaro's track record with women. He's interested in seductive women with complex situations, which always end in tragedy. As Shotaro tries to adjust to this new life, a dopant possessing the Aurora enemy lies in Shadow Futo, searching for Tokime. Tokime drowsy arrives to work, still fixing her clothes. She greets Philip, asking where the others are. After some talking, Tokime is angry, assuming Philip doesn't like her. Philip tries to fix what he said, but it's too late. Narumi Detective Agency is hired by games company Max Soft, whose producer explains the game. Being based on Futo and cosplayer, idol, and celebrity Megu Kazamatsuri. After the hair and makeup team enter to start their montage scene, a full magical girl transformation happens. The team learns Shotaro is hired to bodyguard Monoko Moriguchi, the main programmer for the game Monster El Dorado, who, unknown to the public, is also the game's idol Megu Kazamatsuri, after Megu receives death threats from someone known as M. The girl codes the game and is the star model. Meanwhile, Philip has trouble getting along with Tokime due to their conflicting personalities. Later, a large sold-out crowd is waiting for the idol's performance. Who is inside freaking out over the crowd screaming for something. But when it's time, she switches in character, putting on a show. As Monoko performs as Megu at an anniversary event for the game, the event comes under attack from a Mega Neura Dopant, who seeks vengeance against Megu. Although Kamen Rider W steps in to fight against it, the Dopant proves to have stronger powers than expected, including the power to control gravity. At that moment, Tokime is almost lured away by a mysterious force, leaving Monoko defenseless, and forcing Kamen Rider W to rush in to protect her from the Dopant's attack. Receiving heavy damage to his body as a result, Shotaro entrusts Tokime and the others to continue protecting Monoko, collapsing in her arms. As Philip takes over the investigation for the injured Shotaro, Monoko deduces the Dopant to be a gamer known as Murder. Philip calls in the help of Akiko's husband, police detective Ryu Terui. Philip begins to lay out his plan for Ryu to arrest the man, Aki to keep an eye on Megu, but leaves out Tokime, doing so rather coldly. This starts a loud argument, but Ryu stops the bickering as this is a hospital, with people watching them. Meanwhile, a man named Yukiji Bando appears before Murder, inviting him to a city of some kind before they are forced to flee his apartment following a tip-off about Ryu's raid. At the hospital, the idol explains that the man is a serious gamer, good but a cheater, after he appeared at one of her events. He exploited all the mechanics so she got serious, and since she's the creator, she knew how to beat him. Afterwards, he got violent. Hearing this, Ryu deems she needs to cancel all current events until they catch him, with everyone in agreement. But when Maji arrives, he tries to force Monoko into appearing in a live stream, running out crying. Shotaro forces himself out of bed to help Monoko realize that, despite how she acts, she really does enjoy performing as Megu. But after his speech, he collapses as he's running out of blood, while Akiko gives Philip some encouragement over his jealousy with Tokime. Meanwhile, Tokime notices that the manager is always gone when she performs, and assumes he's the leak, but hearing this, he knows he's right. Revealing that Majima discover that one of Monaco's makeup artists, Midori Koizumi, is the informant leaking information to Murder. Finding her, she's told him about Megu's true identity, confronting her on the reason she explains that she hates her. The woman was a failed idol that hated how natural Megu's career came, knowing being an idol isn't Megu's dream. Using a power-up drug he received from Bando, Murder launches an attack on Monoko, using a new ability to spread monsters all across the building. Tokime rushes in to stop Murder from escaping with Monoko, jumping in the air. Using her willpower to save Megu for Shotaro, the culprit drops her, uncontrollably landing in a pond, but it's too late as he attacks them. Philip catches up to them, using the Fang memory. He first apologizes to Tokime to then transform into Kamen Rider W's Fang Joker form with his body. Philip is able to use Kamen Rider with him in control. Shotaro notices Tokime and tells her to cover up and leave. Philip deduces that the Mega Neuro Dopant's pressure-inducing ability lies in a hidden set of wings, allowing Kamen Rider W to disable them and defeat Murder. Following the incident, Majima breaks down crying over her safety. Thanking them, Monaco's manager Majima then explains, with Megu's being the company's biggest profitable asset, they overworked her, mismanaged her, and didn't care for her safety. Fed up with it, Majima had been fighting against an executive over their poor treatment of Monaco. Leaving the company, hearing how much he's fought for her, she leaves the company to form their own game studio. Afterwards, as Philip makes peace with Tokime and gives her a stag phone to welcome her to the team, Bando disposes of Murder while he's in police custody. As Shotaro and Philip get lost in a blizzard while mushroom hunting in the mountains, with Ryu pointing out the chief's mistake, a woman with long black hair sees the men, asking if they're lost. They are rescued by a woman who brings them to a mansion, this being Kana Kubokura. She tells them she'll try to convince the owner to let them stay. Under the condition, they tell no one that they saw her face. They find this alarming, but agree. Inside the meeting room, they see a masked man being the master, with other masked women in alluring dresses. The master, as a form of entertainment, questions them on how this looks. Philip assumes it's some type of rich guy's masked ball event. Shotaro is able to deduce it instantly. They learn from the mansion's owner, Kuya Kagamino, tells them he is hosting a fox's wedding in which 4 potential brides in masks. The family has been doing this custom to select brides for ages, with even the grandmother going through the same process. The women must try to appeal to him over 4 days without letting their identities be found out, with grandmother selecting the women. Because of how calmly the two took this bizarre tradition, they allowed to stay, but must take part in exchange for shelter. At dinner, Bando greets them, who is going under the identity of art dealer Daisuke Kanamori. Later that night, Kuya is in tears, not caring for marrying him anymore, asking for help. Hearing a large noise, Shotaro discovers one of the candidates, Koyomi Zaizen, impaled on a tree. He and Philip have to fight against an alcohol dopant. Believing the culprit to be someone from the mansion, reveal who they are, and ask they take the lead in what happens next. The grandmother agrees. One of the women asks what happens if he marries the killer, with the man not caring, finding her to be the one best suited for him. Including Kana and the other candidates, Kurumi Nanba and Kei Arito, Shotaro begins his investigation. Kei becomes the next victim after Kurumi discovers her dead in the bath, with Kana suspiciously absent from the crime scene. After questioning the master, he recalls the previous day where Kei tries to seduce him, but Kurumi angrily stops her by insulting her. The master goes to sleep, and the two argue outside his room. On the 4th day, Kurumi, revealed to be in possession of the alcohol memory, attempts to stop Kana from leaving the mansion, only for it to actually be Philip in disguise, who stops her from transforming, with the gear having a defect that kills the user, being what happened to Kei as she originally was in possession of it. Philip then reveals that all the candidates were unknowingly installed with slots for the alcohol memory. Kana used it first, but blacked out and lost her memory. Then Koyomi used it to try and kill Kei, but died from alcohol poisoning, after which Kei impaled her body onto the tree and then tried to attack Kurumi, only to also die from poisoning as a result of transforming in the bath. Afterwards, the memory leaves to the original owner, as the 4 encounter robotic men to fight. Shotaro tells the women to escape and not to fight this time. Just as Shotaro and Philip are joined by Tokime and Ryu, the latter of whom has transformed into Kamen Rider Axel, they are confronted by another dopant wearing an unknown driver. As Ryu uses his trial form to fight against this new dopant, Shotaro and the others head inside the mansion to confront the mastermind behind this incident. The true mastermind and owner of the alcohol memory is revealed to be Kuya's grandmother, Kiku, who had ties with Museum, the evil organization behind the Gaia Memories. Grandmother has been killing and robbing for the family in the shadows, but doesn't have much longer to live, so the contest was used to find a she-devil able to protect the family from the shadows, and sought to find a suitable wife for Kuya, who could inherit the alcohol memory. Kuya is in shock, unable to utter a word. Kiku transforms into the true alcohol dopant, possessing powerful telekinetic abilities, as a result of what Tokime recognizes as a high dope, prompting Shotaro and Philip to transform into Kamen Rider W's most powerful form, Cyclone Joker Extreme. W manages to destroy the memory quickly without injuring Kiku, but as for an arrangement with the butler if she ever lost. The mansion self-destructs, taking Kiku and her butler Kimura along with it. Joining up with Ryu, Shotaro and Philip are formally confronted by Bando, who reveals himself as the Aurora Dopant before disappearing along with his comrades, the Scream and Brachiosaurus Dopants. Upon returning to the agency, The two detectives wrap up the case by explaining how Bando had worked alongside Kiku for this experiment. Kana thanks the detective and explains she just wanted some excitement, with the two girls now being close as Kana is going to work at her club. Kuya, liking Kana, doesn't procure her and becomes determined to make a living on his own. In the alternate Futo town, an old man is heard panting, running from an unknown enemy. In a park, Shotaro and Tokime have a heart-to-heart talk, where Tokime is afraid for the worst if her memory returns. Shotaro comforts her, with staying by her side no matter what. The young couple get on the bike and drive off in hopes to relax. Earlier that day at the agency, a schoolgirl called Ritsuka Rando wanted to ask for help when they contact her father. He apologizes for his daughter, but eventually gives the details. The grandfather disappeared after taking on a valve construction job from a mysterious client. Hearing how the man might be inside the alternate city, Tokime and Shotaro decide to find him, drawing a sketch of the man who started the order. As Philip works with Ryu and the police to investigate the case, Tokime gets pulled into Shadow Futo after picking up a mysterious card. Looking at the town again, she's scared, wondering what made her think to stay here so long, discovering it to be full of monsters, starting to panic over seeing monsters kill each other. She remembers something important that gives her courage. Using her knowledge of the city, Tokime manages to find her way back to the agency to warn everyone about the danger Rentaro is in, only for the Brachiosaurus Dopant to drag her back in, forcing Shotaro, Philip, and Ryu to jump into Shadow Futo after her. There, they confront Rentaro's client, Mamoru Nikaido. The man details how Bando is behind this, how he had the old man make the device, but being the crafty old man he is, was able to realize it was bad news. When he didn't get any answers, he followed Mamoru to the alternate city. Mamoru transforms into the Reactor Dopant, proving resistant to W and Axel's attacks. Meanwhile, Tokime is confronted by the Brachiosaurus Memories user, Hideo Chiba, who claims that this is Tokime's home. Even Chiba knew her former self and questions her. Bando gave her the visa card so she could move back into the town. Tokime tries to question him about her past, but he doesn't want to tell her anything, but asks that she hand over the card until they remove her friends. She refuses, putting the card in a lady's secret hiding place. Chiba finds it mean to make a child do this, but uses his powers to freeze her body. He then takes away the silver visa card, then asks that he investigate her body by removing her clothes. But at the last second, Tokime manages to recall Shotaro's advice about thinking about their client and manages to resist him, allowing her to escape. Meanwhile, W combines Ryu's beetle phone with their heat trigger form to deal Nikaido damage, but Nikaido calls forth an army of Road Dopants, using their ability to force W and Ryu out of Shadow Futo with seemingly no way to return. After receiving some encouragement from Akiko, Shotaro learns from Ritsuka about a special shrine Rentaro would pray at, which is where they find the prototype valve he built before his disappearance. As Philip manages to determine that the valve's true purpose lies somewhere in regular Futo, back in Shadow Futo, Tokime comes to Rentaro's aid. The two take a break where he learns his granddaughter hired her to find him. After Rentaro learned that the valve he built for Nikaido is actually for a small nuclear reactor. Feeling guilty, he built it without checking the company that used them, so he followed the man as a way to stop him. He and Tokime manage to return to the real Futo by following Nikaido's goons through another gate. They end up being confronted by Nikaido, who is using the reactor to cool down his body, but are saved by the arrival of Shotaro and Philip. The detectives had deduced his location from the prototype they found, before Ryu arrives to destroy the reactor. As Shotaro and Philip face off against Nikaido in their extreme form, Nikaido attempts to use Tokime as a human shield, but W manages to both save her and defeat Nikaido. Although the reactor memory is broken, Nikaido uses the last of his strength to eliminate his goons before the Kamen Riders can retrieve a Shadow Futo visa from them. Philip now has everything he needs, so Tokime can finally use the Joker memory. After it's activated, she checks her body, but is unable to find the spot, almost revealing herself just to make sure. Akiko checks her body, concluding it doesn't belong to her. Later, Philip is able to confirm that the broken Joker memory hasn't been used by Tokime before explaining everything he has learned about Bando, including his involvement with Foundation X. As Tokime asks to be told everything about Kamen Riders, Gaia Memories, and Museum to better understand her connection with Shadow Futo, Shotaro tells her about Begins Night, the fateful night when he first met Philip and became Kamen Rider W, being what happened in Episode 1.